to Anything But Ordinary. Tonight's topic is attachments. Can people, things, or even places have attachments? We're going to talk about this and give our own opinions on the subject. Hello, I'm Spooky, along with your other awesome host, Raven. Hello, Raven.
Hey, you didn't forget me
Hey.
this time.
No, I didn't. Last week I forgot who you were.
Oh, we've only done what, 13 shows now?
So, something like that. How's the weather out your way?
Here, look out the window. It says it's perfect. No, it's nice out. It's not cloudy, finally. It's been raining forever, I think, for everybody. Everybody's had those wicked storms and tornadoes and.
I know we've been getting those. We got rain in the forecast for every day this week. It sucks.
And that's hard for people, too, who have all these plants and gardens. You're not getting hardly any sun, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's true, and it's not good for the things in the fields either. The crops in the fields because they're drowning, basically.
Right.
Okay. Nate is saying that he can't hear you. Maybe you ought to turn up a bit.
I will. They should start to hear me now.
Okay, tonight we're going to talk about attachments. Um, what is the difference? I got a question. What is the difference between an attachment and an item that's haunted? Is there a difference between them? Is it the same thing? What do you think?
Can an item actually be haunted? I don't think items are haunted. I don't even. I believe that things have attachments. A house may have a spirit that's attached to it. An object may have an attachment to it. A person may have an attachment to it. And then I also believe that people can be possessed. But my personal opinion, and like we said, we're not experts, right? We're just stating our own
Right, we're not.
theories
We're
and opinions. So
right. We're not experts. I mean, I've been around the paranormal in one way or another practically since birth. It doesn't mean and been doing paranormal investigations
sorry.
for 15 years or so. That's okay. I mean, it doesn't make me an expert. It just makes me experienced.
Right, I had a slam, but I held back because we're doing a radio show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're good
But
friends, so we're always joking around. So you're gonna hear us, slam each other every once in a while. We can't help it; it comes out. But
but our opinions don't reflect
what we
anyone else. It doesn't even
right,
reflect each other.
right. I mean, one moment we might think this, and 2 hours later we might have a totally different thought on the subject or idea. But I mean, we're totally open to listening to everybody's theories and ideas on when it comes to spirituality, paranormal, and all that stuff. I mean, that's why
And
we're
yeah, and even as opinionated as I am, I'm still open for other
right.
people's input.
Right. But as far as objects, I think objects and items, I don't believe that they can be possessed because I think a possession takes hold of a living being or animal or something, but I don't believe that objects can be possessed. I totally believe that they can have attachments, but as far as a haunted item and an item being attached, my personal opinion, it's almost like the same thing.
Well, see, I'm the same way. I don't think an inanimate object can be possessed.
Right.
I do think that, and I've had some experience with it. I do think that they can have attachments. I think that people use the word haunted item because basically that's what a lot of people understand. They will understand that quicker than they will an attachment.
Right.
That's just like well, you know those auctions on eBay. You've seen them.
Mhm.
Selling items that are supposedly haunted, dolls, paintings, rings, whatever. I don't believe that they are all haunted, okay? I believe some of them are fakes, but anyway, but let's say for argument's sake that some of them are.
Right.
Just a small piece of advice, by the way, people. When you buy these items from eBay, you need to realize that you're bringing something into your home that you may just not want there.
I think most people probably are haunted by tax, bill collectors more so than they are by the spirits. I'm just saying.
I hear you.
When it comes for
I
eBay
hear.
items, I'd probably you're probably safe buying more stuff off eBay, and you're haunted more by the
Well, it
living.
seems like the big thing on eBay for haunted items are usually dolls.
Right.
And I
Or
don't know about you,
jewelry. I think people
or jewelry.
jewelry.
That's another good one. Or jewelry, or even paintings. I've seen several paintings that were supposed to have been haunted or jinxed or something. I think one guy said that he put a little warning on there and said the painting has brought them bad luck. But anyway, and the thing of it is, this gives dolls a bad name. I don't know about you, but when I was little, I really didn't like to play with dolls. So that's probably why I don't care for them now. But somebody said in our chat or in our
Our
group,
group. Yeah. Jason.
Jason, Jason, I can't pronounce his last name. I don't even want to try. But he said, I saw dolls on eBay, and the owners claim they are vessels for spirits to dwell in. A lot of them said they talk through pendulums and crystals, and with pictures of heat from a sensor were used showing they had heat. I wonder, it makes sense a doll being close to a child. If the child dies, perhaps it's attracted to the doll. I'm not really
Well,
sure
I
what that
know.
last.
He's meaning that maybe, if a child, like this goes with part of what I was saying. When I wrote up our little tidbit. Do spirits hold sentimental attachments to the items that they once had when they were alive? Therefore, they still stick around or whatever to it. You know what I mean? And that's why we were
Okay.
talking about, is there possible dangers from bringing in items from estate sales, antique items, garage sales, whatever. But I mean, I have my theory as far as certain things, and you have your theories about certain things. But I believe that we're everything's made up of energy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And therefore everything can hold energy. You know how like some people believe in psychics, some people don't. But there's some people who are like legitimate tune in that help police and stuff, and they can hold items that were once owned by the victims. You know what I
So
mean?
you think that they sense that person, the way they do it is by sensing that person's energy?
They leave. Well, everything leaves an energy imprint. You ever see those thermo things they use on ghost shows or whatever? What do they call that? That
Yeah.
thermo, whatever.
Thermal imaging.
Yeah, and you know how somebody sticks their hand on a wall, then you leave your imprint, and the heat stays there for a while. It's just like our
Right.
energy, because even quantum physics, it's, I don't know how to say this. Are you there? Sounds like your
Yeah,
speaker's
I'm
going in
here.
it. Oh, okay, because your sound keeps going in and out. I thought maybe we lost you and I had to reboot or something.
No. No, I'm here.
Okay. Now you threw me off because you kept going off. So, anyway, we're talking about attachments and stuff, and I believe that things hold energy, and people can, maybe not everything has an attachment, but maybe they left behind some of their negative energy. You know what I mean, to an item, and then you bring that
That
in.
was that was my next
That's what I
question.
was trying to
Okay.
go to, but then you kind of threw off my thought there for a second, and I'll get back to my thought later. But that's part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe not everything has a spirit attached to it, but they left some form of themselves on that item. And then you just happen to bring it in, and then you are picking up on that energy, Because
Yeah.
don't they say that poltergeists are made from other people's negative energies?
I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I'm not really familiar with poltergeist, but my understanding is that a poltergeist is created by a person that throws out a lot of energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it's negative energy from like anger and stress and things like that.
Right. Well, every you can. It's not. Well, that's what I think. I think it's any type of yeah, depression and whatever else. But I think they create it from that. If somebody's just constantly in a depressed state and their emotions are all a whack, I think that's the ones where you always hear more of a poltergeist type of
Right.
experience. To me, I think that they created that energy.
Right.
That's what
Well, that's
that's
my
what people
understanding.
say. I don't know. I didn't make it up, but that's just what a lot of people are saying. That's why I was
Well,
asking.
do you think that a evil spirit can attach itself to something like a doll? Because it seems to me that if an evil spirit is going to go after a child, that would be the way to do it, to attach itself to that child's toy. And okay, I'm sure all of us have heard about Robert the doll, and he's a good example. He was, just to give a little history, he was owned by a Key West, Florida painter by the name of Robert Eugene Otto, who his family called him Eugene, and he was given to Eugene by a Bahamian servant who was skilled in black magic and voodoo in 1906
Mm-hmm.
because she was displeased with the family. Now, Eugene's parents thought the doll was creepy and supposed the doll talked because they would hear Eugene talk to it and would hear answers in a different voice. And at first they thought it was Eugene changing his voice to answer.
Mm-hmm. But didn't a lot of
And
crazy things happen too?
yeah, neighbors claim that they would see it moving from window to window when the family was out. And when Eugene got married, Eugene was so attached to this doll that he insisted on having it in the bedroom, and his wife was the one that gave Robert his own room just to get, because she thought that doll was so creepy, just to get it out of the bedroom. But as a child, Eugene would scream out at night, and like when his parents would run into the room, they would find furniture thrown around, and Eugene scared and crying and yelling, saying Robert did it. And guests claim that Robert's expression changed before their eyes, and he often blinked. And then when Eugene died in 1974, the doll was left in the attic until the house was bought again, and the new owners had a 10-year-old daughter who became Robert's new owner. And it wasn't long after that that the girl began screaming out at night and said that Robert moved around the room and even attacked her on multiple occasions. And more than 30 years later, I mean, before this girl died, after she grew up and everything, she would still tell interviewers the doll is alive and wanted to kill her.
Now, you said one of the servants had made the doll for him.
It was a Bahamian servant, so I'm assuming she was from the Bahamas. But it said that I don't think she made the doll for him, but she gave the doll to him,
Cause then
and
she,
she was skilled in black magic and voodoo. So wouldn't you think that was an evil attachment to that doll?
well, from what it
Of
sounds like, this thing is causing havoc for people whoever has it. And in the museum, I know they talked about it. Supposedly, anybody who took picture of it without getting permission, I don't know how the doll gives permission, caused curses to them. But that goes in with
right,
but that goes with the thing that we talked about before. The power of curses. Is it all in your mind, or is it true? Because maybe these people believe that so much that they curse themselves. But as far as that doll being possessed, I don't think it's possessed, but I believe that objects can have attachments to it. And just because something's evil doesn't mean it's demonic, because just like people here, we have good and bad to our personalities. When you pass
right.
over, you still have that same personality, so you have good and bad. Now, there's a difference. What they say is there's a ghost and there's a spirit. A spirit is somebody who's passed on and they're in the other realm and free, and they have more knowing of the truth and light and understanding all that stuff. And then they say ghosts are earthbound spirits of people who didn't want to leave here yet, and they still have attachments to animalistic type. Not, I don't know how to explain this. It's going to come out wrong. But you know how you still you like to eat, drink, party, do all that stuff. So they like to attach themselves to people to continue on that behavior because they don't want to move on yet. Or there's people who love their house and work so hard for it, or loved some items that they purchased and they don't
Yeah,
want to
but
leave
an
that, so
attachment,
they attach themselves to that and go
but
with it.
but an attachment to Robert the doll. I mean, it seems to me that that had to be something that was summoned.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
that's why I asked where
this
he got
servant
it
didn't
from.
like the family. If she didn't like the family, I don't know why she worked. But and little trivia too, Robert the doll
Maybe she didn't have a
was
choice
the
to work from.
inspiration for the Chucky doll on Child's Play.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And yeah,
Hmm.
and Robert the Doll even has his own website and Facebook page. And I mean, this doll is like 108 years old. It's still around, and people still are reporting the strange occurrences with this doll. You know, like it moving its head, it's blinking, or maybe if they what was one story I read? Guy stood there and was making fun of the doll because it was so doggone ugly, and he ended up getting hit by a
Attacked.
car, bad,
Oh, really?
yeah, hit by a car, bad luck or something after he left this museum. It's in the um, East Martello Gardens and Museum in Key West, Florida. And I mean, you can even buy dolls and coffee mugs and T-shirts of this stupid thing. I mean, it's an ugly doll.
So maybe some of the stories might be hyped up just to keep, because someone's making bank off it. But I mean, I've seen things when I was little. I still see things when I'm at the age I'm at now. But it's like I guess I've always seen stuff, so I don't know. I buy antique stuff. I love antique old items, and I fill it up in my place. I have old
My
hope
family calls
chests
it.
and
I do too.
dressers,
I love
beds, all that
antiques.
stuff.
My family calls it junking. Every
Junking,
time,
well,
yeah.
yeah.
Every time I say, "Well, I'm going to go hit the antique store and see what they got." Oh, you're going to go junking.
But usually the things I pick up, it's usually like I'm drawn to it anyway, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's not like I pay for it, because a lot of the stuff I got for free. Somebody's like, oh, I'm just getting rid of this. It's almost like it was meant for it to be mine. But I've never, if I don't, I guess I don't buy something if I don't feel right about it. But it's like I guess I do it subconsciously. But I've always seen stuff now. Is it because these things had an attachment to it and that's why I saw this stuff? I don't know. I guess I never correlated it together because I never thought about that stuff. But I don't really experience a whole lot of negativity stuff, you know what I mean? Because I tend to.
Well, when I go into an antique store, if I'm drawn to something, I walk up and put my hand on it to see if I can feel anything, because a lot of times, if that item has an attachment,
Right.
I can feel it. Now, not always, because sometimes they get by me, and I'll tell you a little story about that in a minute. But I can put my hand on it, and a lot of time, most of the time, I can tell if there's something about it. And I saw that in chat, by the way.
You're supposed to keep talking, though.
I know, but I got distracted. But anyway, I was in the antique store, what was it, about 3, 4 years ago?
Right.
And I was looking for a little stool to put in my bathroom because I'm short.
5'5"
And
ain't that short, though.
I'm not 5'5", I'm 5'4", but I'm still short.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I was drawn to this gorgeous oak stool. And the thing about it that really impressed me was it wasn't put together with nails or screws. It was put together with little wooden pegs holding it together.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the thing was gorgeous. It hardly had any scratches on it at all. And I put my hand on it, didn't feel anything. So I take this thing home and I put it in my bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
That night, I'm taking a shower. And when I stepped out of the shower to dry off, I come face to face with a little boy. And I jumped at, I thought my son had wandered in there. And I jumped back in the shower and I thought, wait a minute, I don't have a kid that looks like that.
Yeah, we're like, whoa.
Where did this kid come from? So I stepped back out and he's gone. And I don't know why, but the first thing I thought about was
Stool, yeah.
that footstool.
Because you just brought it in, you've never seen. Well,
Yeah, because I just
you
brought it.
see spirits in general off and on in your house anyway, but it's usually of old
But I
family
know
members.
what's in there.
Yeah,
For the most part, I know what's in there because I was born in that house. I grew up in that house. I still live in that house. So I pretty well know what's in there.
right.
And so
This
I
was a
said,
totally new thing. So
yeah, this was totally new.
right.
So I set it out in the hallway. And I'm in my bedroom and I'm getting dressed. And I looked at the door and this little boy was peeking around the door at me. So I go out to the hallway, nothing there. I said, okay, I'm not putting up with this. So I have a porch that's closed in and it's just off the living room.
A sun porch. Yeah.
Yeah, a sun porch, and and there's a big glass window there between the sun porch and the living room. So I just picked up the stool. I put it out there on the sun porch. I thought, well, I'm going to leave it out here for a few days.
See, yeah.
So
See if
I'm,
it still happens or something.
yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching TV, and this kid is looking in the window at me. Then I knew it was that footstool. I mean, this was 3 times in one night. There was no mistaking this. So I called a friend of mine and I was telling him about this. So he came the next day and he took the footstool and he took it to his house and he put video cameras on it, seeing if, he could catch this kid materializing from this stool.
Mm-hmm.
He never did do that. He said that he's never caught anything on video, but there has been some activity in his home.
Since, you know what I think interesting? Maybe he felt comfortable enough to show himself to you, but not to that man, you know?
Well, the things going on, that's what I was kind of thinking, because I'm a woman and kind of the mother figure, maybe that's what he was wanting, was a mother figure. I don't
Or
know.
he was a peeping Tom. You know.
Or he was a peeping Tom, the little
Dickens? Yeah.
Dickens. But, and my friend actually still has this stool because I wouldn't take it back in my house. And,
Was there any name?
but the,
Do you
but the
know?
act,
Could you gone back to where you purchased it from to ask where it came from, who made it, if there was a
I
story
did go
behind it?
back. I did go back, and the woman said it came from an estate sale. Well, there's not really, I mean, she can tell me it's from an estate sale, but she can't tell me the story behind it.
Right.
And the house, when the family sold off everything out of the house was tore down because they said it was falling down anyway.
Uh huh.
So, and they couldn't really tell me anything about the footstool. They just said that, their parents had it forever. I know it had to be old with the way it was put together and everything. We figured it was somewhere maybe, 1800s or something, middle 1800s. But anyway,
So do you think
uh,
maybe this stool was the little boy's stool and
I think it was. I think
I,
it belonged to this little boy. I think he may have used it a lot. I don't know if maybe he was one of the original owners or what, but I mean, it was also a footstool that, like your little kids to wash their hands, you could put it by the sink and they can stand on it, and wash their hands or brush their teeth or something. I mean, it was a perfect height for that.
right?
Um, but like I started to say, my friend, he tells me the activity in his house isn't malicious. Sometimes it's little tricks, like things disappearing, and says sometimes or a couple times he has heard a child laugh. So, but he said that this child has never shown himself to him.
Right. Hey, can
I
you?
saw it 3 times in one night.
Yeah, that's well. The weirdest part is, to me, it would freak me out because you're just popping out of the shower, just like do do do. You know, your kid's in bed, nobody should be in there, and then all of a sudden you see this little boy, and you're like, holy, jump back,
Yeah.
because you're,
Well, it was a normal reaction.
well,
Oh,
yeah,
shoot, and back in there, get out of the room.
yeah, and then it
But
dawned on you, like, wait a minute, my kids do not lick like this. So,
right. And this child spirit looked to be older than my son anyway. I mean, my son was real little at that time. So it was just a shock. And the thing of it was, he looked as solid as I am when I first saw him.
do you remember what clothes he was wearing?
I don't remember too much about the clothes. He had on a pair of short pants. He had on this shirt it was long sleeved, and it almost looked like the collar was a little ruffled. That's about really all I noted. He was blonde. I noticed that.
Well, you don't have blonde boy. You have a darker haired boy.
Well, it's what they call a dark blonde, but I mean, it's a little bit on the blonde side. Of
Yeah.
course, the older he gets, the darker it gets. But it was just a shock just to see it. And like I said, I immediately jumped back into the shower. So I don't know. I don't know the story behind this footstool. I don't know where this little boy came from. All I know is that since the footstool has been out of my home, so hasn't the little boy.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him since. So,
you're just
I
like
mean,
tell your friend
it's
just to
just,
keep it then.
yeah, I did. I told him, I said, I didn't pay that much for it. I talked the woman down on the price. Took me an hour to do it, but I talked her down on the price, and then I turn around and end up giving it away. But I haven't seen him since I got rid of the footstool. But this is just, this is just an example of buying things like this
And bringing
and
in things
bringing
that
them
you
into
have
your
no
home.
right.
Exactly.
Right. Now, as far as the doll thing that you were talking about, I mean that you were asking, can dolls have an attachment because it belongs to a little kid? I guess it's always feasible, possible. They may, it might be. I don't know. See, this is the thing. You don't know where. It can't just be antiques, and it's not just going to be old stuff that might have attachments, because you know what? You might move into a brand new house that was just built and it could have already spirits in it. And you know why?
Yeah.
Because you don't know where every single item that came from to build that house. You don't know who worked on it. They could have left their imprint on it. They could have, had their own
I
attachments
don't want to,
attached
I
to
don't want to
something.
interrupt you, but if you can turn me down a little bit, because
I
Moose
can't.
is,
You have to turn yourself down on Skype. What, you go into tools options, remember, and just turn your mic down a little bit. Just uncheck it from automatically moving your levels, and then just move it down a couple notches. That's I can't. I can't do the level for you. So, but as far as like I was trying to say, everybody's always worried about bringing in old items or bringing in an item that they bought from a garage sale, whatever. But anything can literally have an attachment. Like I said, everything's made up of energy. So you buy a brand new house, you don't know where those items came from. You don't know where the wood came from to build the lumber. It could have came from some field, like let's say in Gettysburg, they have all these trees. They chop down those trees. Somebody, they have, gosh, a lot of ghosts and spirits and attachments to that area. And then you bring that wood home and they chop it up, they disperse it, and they build all these new houses for frames and stuff. And there, you can get an attachment attached to that. I mean, leaving, people leave impressions and energy imprints on things all over the place, and somebody might have been fond of a certain thing, and they just went with that, or who knows, maybe a spirit's walking by, decides to see your house and likes it, and it decides to move in. Gosh knows that's happened to some people I've talked to. Some people are just like
luckily, I've never had that happen to me.
a lighthouse that attracts spirits. There's a few people in the chat that I know that have a lot of experiences with the afterlife, but I don't think dolls. I mean, didn't they say that dolls were created in the first place because they were made in image of humans for spirits to
I
possess after
don't
they
know.
passed over?
I know
I've heard
that
that. I'm not saying that that's factual, but
I read somewhere that they would be used for like vessels to to cast spirits in. So I don't know.
well, that because
I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. I know that a lot of times that dolls are used for that. That's like in voodoo, when they want to bring harm to somebody, they make a voodoo doll.
right. But dolls have been around since way back since Egyptian time, and they were just sticks and twigs and yarn or whatever they had back then. But what was that other doll that's one of the famous ones they're always talking about too? Every not just Robert, but what was that one that they had the Warrens took it? Was it Annabelle, the Annabelle?
Annabelle,
Yeah,
Annabelle.
that's
Yeah.
another one. Don't they claim that doll's got a spirit attachment to it too, though?
I just wonder though if it makes me wonder the type of attachments. That's like um Robert had an evil attachment to it. Annabelle apparently has an evil attachment to it, and it's like I said, if if uh, if an evil spirit is going to possess or influence a child, what better way to do it than through their toys, than attaching themselves to their toys?
Mm-hmm.
So it's and that obviously has to be something that was conjured up, like the servant who gave Robert or Eugene Robert.
But that Raggedy Ann doll or whatever they didn't really start seeing stuff until she moved off to college though. So she wasn't a child. She was a she was a teenager slash adult. So
But apparently, she still liked dolls.
well she had a fond attachment to that doll and bring it with her. When she left, it's
And
something.
Raggedy Ann dolls are ugly dolls. I can't understand how anybody can get attached to those things. They're so ugly.
Hey, you know what? I think I still have mine. It was one of my first toys I ever really got, and it's not so much the toy, but I guess it's the affection that you get from the parent when they give you one of your first toys that you kind of remember. Because
Yeah,
my brothers destroyed every single toy I ever owned. They just took stuff, blew it up, and did whatever they want. So I'm lucky to still, I had that. Even as odd as it looked, it was like my best friend when you're a little kid. If they don't have a lot of little kids in your area around your age at the time when you're growing up, your best friend becomes your doll or your bear or your favorite toy. You know what I mean? So maybe
yeah,
you putting that energy into that doll, you may be attracting spirits or maybe creating something. You know what I mean? Think about that. The energy that little kids have and the love that they put into a doll, you know? I wonder
yeah.
if they are attracting something or creating that themselves.
I don't know. It's just it's it's hard to say. It really is. I just I don't think that something like that though happens by accident. I think there has to be a reason behind it. It's like I said, you're talking about other types of spirits, and I'm stuck on evil spirits attaching themselves to these toys.
But what's your
Um,
terminology of evil? Are you talking about demonic? Because, like I said,
Demonic, exactly, demonic.
but people are evil and good. So there's human spirits attach themselves to things, and until they find a good host that they want to possess or use, because they attach themselves to people too. Like I said, there's people who cross over that don't want to leave yet,
Now,
and
I
and they
do
find
believe,
people that have similar lifestyles or injuries that they do, so they'll go and latch themselves onto that person and use them and live through them vicariously until either they can either do a full possession or continue to stay attached to that person and manipulate them and use them to make them do certain things like drink or have fun, all that other negative stuff or whatever, and they feed off of that energy, and that's another part of an attachment thing. But as far as I can't tell you if a doll is being not possessed, sorry, attached by a demonic spirit or a human spirit. I mean, how do you tell the
well, it's
difference?
it's possible. It's possible. Like, I see these antique dolls, in I see these old dolls in the antique store, and there was one in there. It's gone now, but there was one in there. Every time I walked by it, I just got this funny feeling, and it's possible that like the little girl that owned that, she may have loved that doll so much and carried that doll around with her everywhere she went that her energy stayed with that doll.
Right. And it may not just
So
be her, but it may be her energy, you know what I'm saying?
right, right. So, but can it manifest itself though into a spirit,
Right. I don't know.
or does and it maybe have some influence or even play with the child that owns the doll now, or the person that owns it. Of course, you buy an antique doll, you're not going to give it to your kid to play with. You're going to put that sucker in a curio cabinet and look at it and say, yeah, look at that, I spent a lot of money on that creepy thing.
I do have creepy dolls though. I have a few dolls of the Living Dead dolls because they are designed to be creepy.
Oh, those things are so creepy.
I love them though.
I have
I
I
got
have
them
some
way
old
before.
Barbie dolls, but
Well, I
I
don't
mean
want
they're in a
that though.
box under or they're in a box in the attic.
They should be in the trash. I'm not a big Barbie fan. I have
Hey,
some, but
I'm not a big Barbie fan either, but those dolls are worth some money. I mean, I'm not going to throw money in the trash, but I just haven't found the right buyer for them yet either.
Right.
And I'm hoping that my kid don't find them, or she's going to want to get them out.
Well, you know, but it's not, but I think that's the only two major dolls that I've ever really heard about that seems to have the popularity of these dolls are possessed or they have an attachment, you
Well,
know what I
they're the
mean?
most famous.
That I know. I don't really think I've ever really heard of any other ones, you know what I mean?
Well, me neither. Um, my I got a niece that paid $400 for this life size Chucky doll, and it was a movie prop. That's why this thing was so expensive. And it wasn't the one where he looks like a little boy. It's the one after he's got the stitches in his face or whatever, the cuts on him. This is the and got a this real angry look on its face, and this is the creepiest thing I'd ever seen. And she puts this thing in her car and drives it around like it's a little baby.
Well, she probably does it for shock thing, but
I wouldn't have the thing in my house.
I don't. Dolls are creepy in the first place, so maybe people project their fear into these items, and create said events. Maybe their fear, and because you watch a scary movie or you're told these certain things, and then people have people have fear of clowns, so you get somebody gets a clown doll or something, and then they're so afraid of it, and they're always sticking it in the closet. Maybe they're creating this energy by their thoughts because our thoughts are energy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
they can create this stuff, and maybe they're creating these entities out of their own fearful thoughts. Just a
right.
theory. We're not saying everything we're saying is factual. We just throw things out there, because nobody's gonna know the true answer, here, because we're all human. No one's better than the other person. That's why we all come together and talk about these things, just to learn and grow with each other. But I just believe that dolls cannot be possessed because they're objects. I think possession, if I was a demon, you want to take possession of a living being because you want that body. You want to do harm
Yeah.
to them and to anybody else
Well,
around
well,
you.
Moose asked the question a while ago. Why would something attach itself to something inanimate?
To get to somebody, I suppose. Right?
I would. Well, if spirit actually attached itself to something, I think a lot of it. Like I said, I do believe that some things have demonic attachments, and I believe that the reason behind it is to get to the owner of whatever that object is, like a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that people leave their energy, because even when you die, you have left some sort of energy on this earth, and where it's at,
Well, even when you're
may not
living,
show itself for a while.
but even when you're living, you're leaving energy. Our thoughts
Well, that's what I mean.
and our words
I'm
are energy. So you ever go into like a doctor's office or you go into a restaurant, you go somewhere and somebody that's in there is just so negative or somebody was just there that was negative, they leave that foul energy there and if
hmm
you're sensitive enough or you're tuned in enough, you just walk through this big old cloud of negative and you're like, "Whoa," you know what I mean? But people don't even realize and we spread either negative or positive out just by our thoughts and our words and our actions, you know what I'm saying? But you just being in a bad mood and you're not even saying anything to anybody, but they pick up on that energy and you're leaving that imprint forever.
Oh
How
yeah,
long it
there's.
lasts, I don't know, but you can definitely feel it when you go into certain places and
Oh, I know. I've walked into the doctor's office more than once, and I would be in a good mood walking through the door, and as soon as I got into that waiting room, it's just like the air is so thick with negative energy that you can almost cut it with a knife. That somebody or was in there, maybe one person, maybe more than one person that was just in a bad mood, and I mean you can feel it, and after a while it starts affecting you.
oh, it does. I mean, that it does just hanging out with somebody. If somebody's in a foul
Yeah.
mood and you're always listening to negative or around negativity, you become negative because it starts to break you down. You need to. I mean, people don't even realize the power of subjective power that just from TV shows, movies, radio, whatever. If you're hearing something constantly negative, but we're getting off topic because that has nothing to do with attachment part there. But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I mean, like I said, everything is energy, and we're all living it like living and or a part of this whole constantly moving, changing quantum mass of energy, and it moves in and out of different forms, and not everything's totally solid. And if you had like a super powerful like microscope, you know what I mean? If you look at something, 99.9% of it is space, and 0.1% of it is subatomic particles. You know what I'm saying? So everything switches from like waveform and I just lost my thought. But you know what I'm saying? So I believe it is possible for people to create their own spiritual attachments with their own negative fears and whatnot. They might be drawing these things into them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but don't you think though that spirits will just attach themselves to people? I mean, um, demonic spirits and so-called good spirits. Don't you think that they?
Well, I don't
I
think
mean,
a good
we all
spirit
know
would
what
ever possess somebody.
demonic possession is. I mean,
Right.
if a demon, it's going to attach itself to you. It's going to influence you in such a negative way that all you're going to do is think negative or talk negative. I mean, I know people like this, and I'm not saying that they're possessed or have a demonic attachment, but
Well, it doesn't have to just be
I still
demonic. It could
think,
be
yeah, it could be a negative energy
a
too, right? It
negative
doesn't
person
necessarily have, it doesn't, a spirit that was a negative person in
in
real
life.
life,
Yeah, and they don't want to
you
let
know,
go of the life, so they
and
attach themselves to somebody.
yeah, it doesn't even have to possess you. Just attach itself to you,
Yeah, and they drain your
and
drive, your
and
energy, and
and start changing your outlook on things, the way you do things.
get you to drinking and drugs. Or it depends on how weak in a state and
I
how
mean,
powerful
just
that they
just your
are,
whole
though.
mannerisms and your way of going through life.
Well, who was that one girl? She was 16, Annalisa Michael. Remember, she was that one of those famous cases of possession. I think they even made a movie about her. She I think she had like epilepsy and like a slight mental illness or whatever. And I think it was like in the 70s or whatever. And she believed that at one point, she believed that she was possessed by demons and requested that her parents call some priests in and stuff. And they denied her to have exorcisms, but like these two priests secretly um, did exorcisms on her like 70 sometimes, But she ended up dying. They say she died because of starvation and dehydration, but she was, talking in different languages and started behaving in stranger ways, and she was ripping out her fingernails and her hair and attacking people and talking with growls and whatnot. And one of the pictures of her are up on the little tidbit that we kind of made, where you can see where she looked all healthy and normal, and then she started going to the state
up
of,
in the left-hand corner.
yeah, and started going into a state of fits. Now she's one of a well-known one that people probably have read about, heard about, or watched the Hollywood
Well,
version
do you
of
think
it.
that mental illness is caused from an attachment?
I believe that it's a big
Some people think
possibility.
that
Yeah.
some mental illnesses like depression is caused from a chemical imbalance in the brain. But I'm not real sure I even believe that. I don't know if they're caused from attachments
Well,
or a chemical imbalance,
we all have
but
different theories of why someone's depressed, but I think depression really lies on what you're thinking about and what you're letting run through your mind. Now, if you sit and repeat a memory over and over your head that's negative, you're going to get yourself depressed. Now, we have control over our thoughts, and when you control
I
your
said
thoughts, you
think about
control
some
your
things in my
emotions.
life, I get depressed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
I think about my family, I get depressed.
if doctors instead of pushing,
Not my kids,
well,
other
yeah, but
members.
if doctors instead of pushing pills, teach people on, hey, listen, you have the ability to control your emotions just by controlling your thoughts, by not, don't sit there and think about things that happened in the past, or
And
don't
then
sit
they'll
there and think
push
about
pills at
negativity.
you that keep you from thinking.
Right, but we're off track again. We're sticking to attachments.
No,
But it could cause
really
depression, yeah.
we're not off track
Right.
because I mean, is it caused from a chemical imbalance in the brain, or is it caused from an attachment
Or
or a
possession.
possession?
Right.
I mean, I know people that say, well, if you pray, that's all you need is God in your life, and you don't get depressed.
It's a
But
part
that's not
of
always true either.
it's a process. for those people who believe in God and the Creator and the Bible and all that stuff, it's like it's a teamwork. You work with Him. You don't just God's not a genie bottle where you rub it and be like, okay, dude, take this problems away. You know, it you led your life a certain way and you exposed yourself to certain people who may have been negative, may have been positive. Therefore, they can influence you, but you always have control over your own actions and what you do
And
after
I
that.
believe that.
But
You have control over your life.
we run into some shady people, right, and bad stuff. But I believe that it is a possibility that you could have an attachment and it's feeding on you, and you guys are your souls are kind of bonding a little bit. So you might be picking up their issues that they had. You know what I mean?
Could be.
I'm sorry that
What is that?
my phone keeps going off. Just ignore it.
Okay. What about hauntings? Like haunted houses? Okay. Do you think that houses are haunted because the spirits have just attached themselves to this house and don't want to leave it?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, some people like, what about that lady who loved the Hope Diamond? They believe it's cursed or whatever, but you remember she loved it so much she wore it wherever she went and everything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because, well, to her it was a good luck charm because anything that supposedly was reputed to be bad luck, she said always brought good luck to her. So, but yet her husband went insane. Her daughter committed suicide. Her son died. So,
But I'm
but
saying she could attach,
that's
but she loved that item so much she wore it wherever she went, wore it in the bathtub and whatever. So maybe she didn't want to pass on because she wanted to stick with her jewelry. So I guess it's a possibility depending on how much sentimental and love that you had to this item that you keep it, you know? That you don't want to move on. I guess it's a possibility. I mean, I'm not God or the creator. I don't know.
I don't know either. But I've been doing paranormal investigations for like 15 plus years. And I've had this question posed to me more than once about ghosts or spirits, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them ghosts, some people call them spirits. But that the reason that a place is haunted is because that entity has attached itself to that place and doesn't want to leave it, wants to continue on with their life. And even though a place becomes dilapidated, that they don't see it, they see the place as it was when they were alive. I don't know how they know this, but that's just, the theory that was posed to me or said to me. But what about residual hauntings? Do you think that that's just the energy that those people have left behind from that is attached to the place that plays itself over and over?
A residual haunting. Okay. Yeah, I guess, well, one, like, okay, there's two things that I could go with, right? One, it could be just an imprint of what they're doing, and the environment of what's in there could have recorded it and kept it, because they say certain things hold energy more than other. And two, remember we were talking about Gettysburg, and we were talking about the people that were shot in the head, and then it took them a while to die, and they were
Right.
still in the process of what they were doing. They were roped off in the field, so they were kind of like the Walking Dead. So maybe
Right.
they didn't know that they had died, and they're continually doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe one, it's an energy imprint into the environment because of the certain minerals, rocks, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or two, it's something that doesn't know that they're dead and they're just stuck in the same repetitive pattern over and over again. Or maybe that's the only part that people are picking up and they're not seeing the rest of everything else that's going on, you know?
Right.
There's always a possibility for everything. I don't know 100%, but that would be like my two theories on it. You know what I mean?
So their energy is just playing it over and over, like it just
It's
does.
imprinted like a
It's imprinted.
replayed
Thank
video.
you.
Or someone's just stuck in that pattern because there's something that they're upset about that they just haven't been able to get over. So they're replaying that part of their life over and over and over again until somebody or they figure it out and they can move on beyond that point to a higher realm. You know what I mean? Yeah, kind of like OCD ghosts, someone Smooshy Foot said in chat, you know. But there's also there's Possession. Remember David Berkowitz?
Right.
You're too low tone. I can't hear you. But there's David Berkowitz.
I'm too low now.
I can't hear you. I mean, I get them. It might just be Ustream hanging up, and I'm sorry, guys. This is the best that we can do right now, but we'll work on it later. But you can't go any lower, or I can't hear you. But David
What about now?
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. But David Berkowitz,
Okay.
he didn't he claim that he was possessed or the dog, was
He said the
possessed.
dog talked to him.
Yeah, but maybe they're both possessed. Maybe he was possessed and therefore he heard the dog telling him.
Maybe he was possessed or had a negative attachment that told him the dog was talking to him.
Okay, we're good now. I'm sorry. Thank you guys. We're sorry about this. We're doing, the best we can. Sometimes things hang up and whatever. But, David Berkowitz is another highly known one where I would think almost every serial killer or spree killer.
Wasn't he like the son of Sam?
Yes, that's what Scooby.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you, Scooby. But I would think almost any serial killer or a spree killer would have an attachment or possession because seriously, think about it. What would drive somebody to be that mental? You know what I mean? You
Right.
would have to have. I mean, no sane
That
person.
that would almost have to be a possession.
I totally think that they're possessed. I mean, think about the destruction and the hate that they have for humanity and humans, and they take glee and joy in destroying another life. I mean, that's what typically they say demons enjoy doing. So to me, I think anybody who's basically a serial killer and or spree killer, really, to me, I believe that they're possessed or have in and out spouts of possession. May not be full blown possession, but to me, I think that they are. I mean, there was that one kid, Ronald Doe or whatever. That's not his real name, but the priest had given him that name. But he was the one who inspired the movie The Exorcist. Now he was a 14-year-old boy, and him and his aunt played with the Ouija board and stuff. She was like into it, so she encouraged them to do it together or whatever. Well, she passed over. They say that he tried contact. This is what they say. I'm not saying this is for fact, but they say that he tried to contact her with the Ouija board, and that's kind of like what led the doors open for him to be possessed by evil human spirits or demons. We don't know exactly what's possessing him. We just know it's something dark. And right after that, and they started experiencing strange sounds in the house. Religious artifacts were flying off the walls, unexplained footsteps, scratching noises, and he was starting to be scratched and and they were like having words carved into his flesh by unseen claws and stuff, and he was speaking in tongue, like guttural, like growly type
Right.
noise or whatever. And they even like tons of people even seen this boy levitate in the air. Now they sent him off to some what do you call it? Where the Catholic
Convent.
convent where all the Catholic priests stay in, right? So they sent him off there, and for a long time he
No, convent's for nuns. I don't know what it's called for the priest.
yeah, I don't know. Well, whatever. Anyway, he went to some Catholic sanctuary that has all the priests in or whatever, and they were constantly doing exorcist rituals on him for probably about over 30 times. And that boy, during those things, he was, still floating. Objects were flying. He was hurting priests and stuff. They even tried tying him down a little bit, and he was still, things were whipping around and doing all that stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know, spooky, maybe a seminary. But they said the last rite that they did on him was successful because they said everybody in the whole hospital, because they also have like a little hospital attached to that place where they were staying, heard like bestial growls and anguish as it was leaving his body. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
after that, he was fine and went back home. I don't know. They changed his name to protect his privacy, but it'd be interesting to see if this person's ever experienced any more forms of possession. You know what I mean? But he had opened himself up by inviting it in by playing with the Ouija board, which makes something else interesting.
Ouija boards are another one of my pet peeves. But
But what do you think about the ghost box? I mean, isn't that almost like
well, that's the same thing as opening to me.
Like opening
okay?
the door.
Some people are going to disagree. Monastery. That's what it is.
Thank you, Callie and guys.
some people are going to disagree with me, but I think using a ghost box is the same as opening up a door. Using a Ouija board is opening up a door. And I have said this, I know 1,000 times, when you open up a door, something's going to walk through.
Right.
And
So
it may not be something that you want.
that may bring the possibility of having people becoming getting attachments that way because they're inviting somebody. They don't know who because it's an open call.
Yeah,
Please come and
exactly.
communicate with me. That's like
Has any,
opening your
has,
door and saying, "Hey, random person, come in my house and have a
yeah,
conversation with me."
that's like inviting an absolute total stranger
Right, into your house.
into your home. You don't know what you're going to get.
Because you don't,
It's
you might, because you can look at somebody and they look totally normal, and they could be like the most psychotic person.
Yeah, and they'll turn on you in the blink of an eye. So you don't know.
That's why you never pet a rattlesnake.
Right. I wouldn't pet one anyway. I saw one, I'd run
Or chop it. Yeah.
or chop it up.
She hates snakes.
I hate snakes. I just absolutely hate snakes.
But you know what? I bet, there's a lot of people who may just have slight forms of attachment and don't even know it. And there's some people who are like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why do I keep making bad decisions? Why is this? Maybe they have something that's influencing them.
Well,
And feeding off of them.
do you think like drug users or alcoholics,
Oh, that leaves them
people
totally
like
more.
that
Well, I think.
have attachments?
Oh yeah, it totally leaves you more open, more susceptible because you're not in your right frame of mind, and you're leaving your energy and yourself wide open for anything to influence you or hop in or take you for a test spin.
Take you for a test spin like a car.
Sorry.
This guy looks drunk enough. Let's take him for a test spin.
Right.
Um,
Because
I lost my total train of thought with that one.
Because there's things that you do that you would normally never do when you're drunk because you're in such
Right.
of a state of openness that something could just pop in you, and then you know what? Next thing you know, you're in prison because you murdered 10 people and you don't even know you did it. You wake up like, what? There you are. I believe that you're totally opening yourself up, not just with that, but I also
Well,
believe
yeah, because your inhibitions are down.
you're not there.
You're not there. Basically, you're not there because
You're checking out.
when you're on drugs, when you're drunk, your mind is altered, your inhibitions are down, and you are just totally open for anything that wants to grab a hold of you. I understand that. Um, it's a given, really, and I think that. And I do believe that drug addicts and that alcoholics do have attachments, but it's up to them whether or not to get rid of them. And I wonder how many of them just one day wake up, and say, "Well, this is not me. Where did my life go? I have to turn this around. I have to get rid of whatever has a hold of me."
Right. Well, then I think that a lot of drug users get more possessed. I think it's more of a possession, even like Nate said, because I think it takes them over and it wants to destroy them.
Right.
It's breaking them down because supposedly
But
demonic things.
why would they completely, stay in there and do that? Because once they're hooked on drugs, once they become alcoholics, their job is done.
No,
Do you
it's not.
think?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Their job isn't done. They stay in there because not only are they destroying this person's life, they're destroying everybody that comes in contact with this person. And the demons, not evil spirits or people who have bad attitudes that don't want to leave the earth, but demonic spirits hate humans and hate us because I'm just saying this is what's said, not saying that this is what we're saying, but they say because they were made in God's image and they're jealous. And their whole goal is to destroy humanity, and darkness's goal anyway is to destroy itself anyway. So it's going to use this body until this body can no longer be used, and then it will move on to the next host.
And until the person is dead.
And move on to the next host. Hey, let's take a quick break. We're going to take a 3-minute break to let you guys get up and get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, or what have you. For those of you who are listening over at Ustream, if you scroll down, you can find our URL and come over and join in the chat. Welcome back to Anything But Ordinary with Spooky and Raven. I'm Raven, and here's Spooky, and we're going to continue our talk about attachments, possessions, and whatever else.
Okay, not only old things have attachments. Okay,
Right.
a few years back, I love science fiction and fantasy island items. Gosh, all of a sudden I got tongue tied. I have a collection of dragons and things like that, little wizard looking figures and everything.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was in a store one time and I saw these wooden gnome like creatures. They were gorgeous. They were, oh, I guess about 6, 7 inches high, painted real nicely carved, had little jewels in them and everything. And there were 6 of them, and they were carved from the root of a tree. I can't remember the name of the tree, but they were carved from the
Ooh.
root of a tree
Mm-hmm.
that grows in South America.
That's interesting.
Well, I bought these things, bought 6 of them, and I took them home. And I put them in my little curio cabinet, and they were new, weren't previously owned, brand new items.
Yeah, but they were carved from a tree. Who knows what happened in that area? What if somebody was
Right.
slaughtered there, hung
Well,
from the tree, or what have you?
every time I walked by that cabinet,
Or maybe
I
you
would.
had a spirit, a nature attachment, a nature spirit attached to that
That's
tree.
well, that's entirely possible. I mean, I'm not sure where in South America the tree came from, but I know it was
Not in
a,
your backyard.
a tree that grew in this one area.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I walked by that cabinet, I would get an uneasy feeling, and I would hear whispering. And this only happened every time I walked by this curio cabinet. And I thought, I must be hearing things. And it would sound like several people talking, and I could hear the whispering, but I couldn't make out what was being said. And I didn't really think about it too much because, like this house that I live in was built before the Civil War.
Right.
There's all kinds of spirits in it, and I thought, they're playing games with me. One of those nights. But one night, I walked by this cabinet, and I just got this the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I turned around and I looked at these figures, and it seemed like that the expression on all 6 of them's faces were different, and I could hear this whispering, and it got louder and louder and louder. So I went and got a box, and I took these things out of the curio cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
and I had it sitting on a bench on the porch. And the next day, this friend of mine and her boyfriend came over to visit, and she asked me what was in the box, and I told her what they were. And he's one of these guys that he's into this sort of thing too, and he says, "Oh wow," he says, "that sounds so awesome." And I said, "Well, I don't like them; they're creeping me out." And he says, "Well, I'll buy them from you." And I said, "No," I said, "Take them." I said, "If you want them," I said, "But I'm going to tell you something." I said, "If you hear whispering or get bad feelings, don't come back. Don't bring them back.
Right.
Burn them." He said that he has never got an uneasy feeling, and it's not something that happens all the time, but every once in a while he thinks that he hears whispering. But he says that he has spirits in his house too. So, and he thinks that these things have nothing to do with it. And I asked him, I said, "Have you heard whispering before in your house?" And he said, "Yeah." And he told me about an incident where he had the box before he took them out of the box and put them up on his little shelf. The box was sitting in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about he was cooking potatoes. And all of a sudden, these potatoes started jumping out of the pan.
Hot potatoes.
Hot potatoes, exactly. And I didn't think too much of that because this guy's a weirdo anyway. I really didn't care for him.
But
So,
aren't we all a little weird in our own unique
well,
way?
we are, but he was obnoxious and weird. But I said, well, maybe it's the little gnomes. the gnome creatures is what I called them. And he says, nope. He says, I don't know what it was. To this day, I ran into that guy, and this had to have been a couple years back, maybe 3 or 4. I ran into him about a month ago, and he still has those stupid things. So I'm guessing that maybe he didn't get the uneasy feeling with them that I got. But my point is that something doesn't have to be old to have an attachment. These things were brand new.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier about some I'm Canadian, but like I said, somebody could
Does
just
that make a difference?
yeah, because But I'm just saying, I just throw out different accents every once in a while. I'm like a sponge, but somebody gets a brand new house, it could have spiritual attachments, it could be haunted, whatever, because you don't know where the items came from that made that house. You know what I mean? That lumber, where did it come from? Where did the tree come from? Was there some crazy incident that happened, from it, or who worked on it, or what have you. So anything can literally have attachment. It doesn't have to be old. It doesn't have to be new. It doesn't have to specifically be a doll or creepy or, whatever. It could even be a religious artifact or, item, There's just as much energy that people put into dolls being haunted and possession. What about people putting the opposite energy into religious items? What if all these people put all this positive energy and belief into, like, the weeping painting or the weeping statue of Mary that has blood come from her eyes? Maybe these people are creating that thing to do that because they're all putting their energy and their belief into it.
Is it possible for a religious item to have attachments?
But that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's not just attachments, but maybe it's the level of energy of how many people coming together, putting that thought, believing that this thing is haunted or this thing is holy, and creating this thing to manifest certain things. Like, they have the bleeding Jesus painting or the Mary that weeps blood and water, and they keep praying over these things. And maybe these people are creating these things to happen because of their energy. Or these people who are seeing the Blessed Mother Mary, there's people who believe in her so much, and I'm not against her for it, whatever. I'm just sharing a story, okay? So I'm not trying to attack anybody or put anybody down. I'm just explaining something here. But, they're seeing this thing. What if this thing isn't what they believe it to be? And what if it's a trickster? What if it's a darker entity?
Smoosh. Foosh. Foof.
Foof, yeah, that's a hard name. Said something like stigmata.
You know what? You really ought to change your name on there. But anyway,
okay.
It says something like the stigmata.
Yeah.
What about the people that seemingly get the stigmata? Their hands bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that, I don't know?
I guess
what
it could.
All they get, or their feet bleed.
Right.
What about these people? Do you think that's caused from an attachment? Do you think
possession?
That's divine intervention?
That's interesting.
What do you think?
I guess everything really has to go on a case per case basis, because you can't ever clump anything as a whole. You can't say, just like it irks me when every doctor diagnoses everybody with a label that you have this issue, because you can't. Everybody's a totally individual spirit and soul. They have their own unique personality. You cannot put everything in the same box. So said person could have a possession, and this other person might just be faking it. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say. You would really have to experience it and be in that same room with that individual to really tell, is this person possessed or not. There's some people, though, that I've met up where you just look at them in the eyes and they're not right. You just can feel
I've met people like
darkness,
that too.
And they just ooze it,
People have said that about me too, but
wow. You have your moments.
I have my moments, that's right.
No.
I'm
What about the Myrtle's Plantation mirror? Remember we had a guest on who was sharing his
I think mirrors are more I think mirrors
right?
are more like portals.
Because a lot of people
than
believe that
than an attachment thing.
a lot of people believe that Myrtle's plantation mirror has attachments because there's so many apparitions and ghostly faces that manifest itself over the years from that. So a lot of people believe that mirror, that thing, has an attachment, but you say it's probably more of a portal.
Well, I think that mirrors can be portals, and I think that that is more of a portal thing. That's like the Cheney Mansion. Remember the photo of the mirror that I took there? There were several spirits clearly seen in that mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. They could have been attachments because that one looked like the nurse that had lived there for like 30 years.
Maybe they're not
But why
attached.
would she be
Maybe they're
attached to
not
that
attached to
particular
the.
mirror?
But maybe they're not attached to the mirror. Maybe it's easier for them to show themselves through the mirror
Well,
than it
true.
is to manifest a complete form. Maybe it's easier for them to, use their reflection in a mirror to get, it, depending on the level of the spirit's
Well,
energy.
when they want to make themselves known or seen, yeah, that sort of makes sense.
What about those haunting paintings that they're always talking about? That one. I know the other show that used to be on with the Getter. Remember that you guys were talking about that one painting, The Hands Resist Him, where it had that little boy and little girl standing. It's on our photo here in front of the door, and they had a bunch of hands posting on the window and stuff. That this person claims, who was selling it on eBay, claims that this painting, that the little boy would leave the painting and roam throughout the house, and just scare the bejeebus out of them.
Why would something though possess a painting? I mean,
Maybe it was the
or
energy.
attach itself because I don't believe an inanimate object like a painting or a doll or something like that can be possessed, but I do believe that they can have attachments. Why would something attach itself to a painting? What good would that do? Unless it was I don't know, a painting that someone really really loved, and I mean it was their favorite painting or something.
Right. Okay. Well, here's my thing. Right. You're working on something, as an artist. You're spending a lot of time and a lot of emotion and a lot of energy into that object that you're working on. Like there's another painting we have up a picture on. It's called the Anguished Man. Now, Sean Robinson's grandmother, she kept it in the attic for like 25 years before Sean inherited it when she died. Now, his grandmother told Sean that painting was evil, and how she explained to him, she said the artist who created it had used his own blood mixed in with the paint and then had killed himself shortly after completing
Well, he
it.
definitely put his energy into that painting then.
Now, when she had it, she claimed that she was hearing voices, crying, when the painting was displayed, and she would see like shadowy figure of a man in her house. So she locked it away up in the attic and kept it up there the whole time until Sean Robinson, inherited it after she moved on. And then he displayed it in his home, and not shortly after, his family as well started to get strange experiences. And even his son was pushed down the stairs, and his wife's hair was pulled and everything else. So then they kept it down in the basement. Now he brought it back up, and this is on YouTube, guys, so you can go look up the Anguished Man painting by Sean Robinson, and he now put a camera on it for 8 days or how many days it was, and he was filming it, and some strange activity had occurred and been captured on video. Now, we're not going to show it here, but you guys can go look it up on YouTube later on and see and believe for yourself. But he got strange sounds on there. He got a door opening and slamming, things being falling down and stuff. Now, he caught that on YouTube video, that he kept that painting in a room and left a video camera going. So you guys can go check that out later on YouTube, The Anguished Man. But, that painting, that guy literally put his own essence into the painting. Now, this guy was suicidal as it was, so he probably already had attachments, so he may have left some type of negative.
So that would have been
negative
since he left
energy
his own
into
blood
it.
in the painting.
Mm-hmm.
That would more or less be negative energy. I mean, if this guy was so disturbed and so
Depressed.
thank you, that he did this painting, mixed his own blood in with it,
Right.
with the paint,
Right.
and then committed suicide, then
Not long
he would
after. And it was his
not long
last, it
after
was
that. I mean,
one
he
of his
had
last
to have
items that
put
he worked
negative
on it.
energy into this painting.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Crazy wants to know what it's called again. It's called The Anguished Man.
Yes. I'll type it in later, and I could possibly post the link on our webpage too. But yeah, it's definitely on YouTube. His name's Sean Robinson. It's called The Anguished Man, and the photo's up on our little tidbit. It's that like screaming face dude. Now there's also
The lower left.
I don't know where it is, but there's also the other painting that's kind of famous. It's called the Crying Boy painting. Now, in 1985 and on, they made a series of there was like a series of mysterious house fires that were brought to attention to like the general public, and following the discovery that in each case the buildings and all their contents were completely destroyed, apart from that painting called the Crying Boy, which remained unscathed. You know, kind of like the James Dean car didn't burn up. And then in the years that followed, there was like 40 to 50 cases were recorded in which house fires had destroyed everything except for that picture, and it became known as the Curse of the Crying Boy. And it even made headline news at one point. Now, the picture itself was a portrait painted by a Spanish artist of an orphan, and it said that even his own studio had burnt to the ground, and the boy was later killed in like a car crash or something like that. Now, the picture is one was
Now, is this a portrait though that the artist painted of a
of a
real
little
boy?
yeah, of a real orphan. Now, the picture
Okay.
the picture is one of the first to be mass produced in the UK, and there are like several thousands of them in circulation. I think maybe just 1,000 actually. But the curse still seems to appear to be applied to every single copy of that painting. So
Wow.
so is that an energy thing? From what he painted into that picture, that did they capture some type of essence, and therefore it just goes along with even the thousands of
Well, if
printed
he painted
copies of
this
it.
of a real orphan, I mean, the orphan, the crying boy. The orphan is crying. Um,
But maybe it's not
he
even.
has no parents. He wants parents. He doesn't like living in the orphanage. It would seem to me that it would throw negative energy into that painting.
But what says that it's the boy's fault? How do you know that there
No,
wasn't?
I'm not saying it's the boy's fault.
But no, here's a
But
thought.
you don't know what this painter felt when he was painting this
But
poor,
what if it's
sad
neither of them? What if
orphan.
it's neither of them? What if they already had attachments to them,
Well,
and then it went on with this thing? I find it's very funny that everybody who had a copy of this painting had
yeah,
experienced
even the copies
fires.
yeah. There's
So
something
that's
wrong
like
with the
three. So
copies.
that's like what three? There's paintings there that claim to have attachments. I didn't say a possession, but there's attachments. You got the Myrtle's Plantation mirror that people believe has attachments. Those dolls, they believe are possessed. But I just don't think that inanimate objects or things that are not alive. Why would something want to possess that? They would rather possess a living host that they can do damage to that person and anybody that they come in contact with.
Right.
Now, things may be cursed and hold attachments. Now, somebody picks that up, they bring that into their house, and that entity is going to work its way on every single being that's in that house until they can break somebody down where they can, create a hole in their aura, energy, whatever people like to say.
Create chaos in their lives.
And then work the way. They'll keep eating at you until they can break you down enough until they can officially take over that person, and use you until they can't drag your body around anymore. There's people who I've had some crazy stories where you hear people who go into a coma and they come out of a coma and they're totally a completely different person. I've seen that on some shows and stuff where this daughter and father, said that their mom, when she came back and said, "Quit calling me that name. That's not my name. My name is this," and acted like a 100% different person with different personality, everything else. What if you're in a coma, you check out, and then something else slips in and takes your body over? You know what I mean? And then continues on the rest of your life. There's cases that you can read up about people who have been in a coma and then reawaken, and they're not even the same person.
Yeah, we're going to have a show sometimes in the next couple months about near-death experiences.
Yeah, but we're gonna do time travel and other stuff first.
I don't know. Why would something attach itself to someone in a coma?
Not
That's
attached, took over. 'Cause it's kind of like meditate. See, people don't know the dangers. Like, you know those people who like to meditate and they leave
oh
their
yeah,
body, astral projection? You're leaving your body open for something to step in. And if you're not
right.
strong enough to push it out or get back in, then you have to stay alive, attached to that body till that body dies before you can move on. Because you're literally connected to your body. That was your kind of like agreement when you came in here. You know, so if you're doing all these meditations and popping in and out of your body, and you know, you're not really, I don't think anybody's really ever 100% protected or skilled in what they're doing, you know, because, you know, we only know this or that, but you're leaving yourself open for whatever else is right there waiting to take over. Now, if you're not strong enough to push that thing out, you have to follow this thing around while it's doing damage and destroying people you love and who knows what to that body, you know?
Right.
Or if
Exactly.
you do get in, are you strong enough to push it out of you? Then you may share that body with this other host. You know, there's
I have
possible
never
dangers in
ever
everything. You know.
tried to do astral projection because I didn't want to leave my body unguarded. I didn't want to come out of my body and just leave it unguarded because for that because I had a fear of what would enter before I got back
Or if you could get back.
or if I could get back. I have time enough to tell one more story.
Oh yeah. Okay. I have still other stuff to talk about too. So, but go on. We can get them all in.
Okay. I'll try to make this as quick as I can. My family, we don't put our people in nursing homes. We take care of them at home. We bring them home and we take care of them until they pass away. My grandfather died in this house, and after he passed away, everything that was in his room, his hospital bed, the bedside table, everything, we put in a shed out on the property.
Mhm.
Well, my sister was here one time, and for some reason, she was looking around in the shed and she found the bedside table. It was still out there. It had been cleaned up and everything, but it sat in this shed for a long time. And she wanted something. I don't know why she wanted this particular item, but she wanted something because it had been something that was associated with our grandfather.
Maybe she just felt compelled or drawn to it. Maybe this thing was calling her to it.
I'm kind of wondering about that because I mean she latched onto it and she didn't even ask. She just took it out, put it in the back of her truck, and said she was taking it. And it
As
just
long as she
we
doesn't do that with your items in your house, she'd be like, fine with
yeah.
me.
Well,
Next time,
that's
take my
true. That's
kids.
true. But this that's true. Um, but this happened to be something that we really didn't care about,
Mhm.
so we let her have it. Well, it wasn't long before she had this dark, shadowy figure in her home. It never did anything, but it was there. And she had this bedside table in her bedroom for a while, and she said that this shadow would move around the room, and sometimes it would just stop and look at her. So she took it out of her bedroom, and she had this huge kitchen. So she just put it in a corner of her kitchen, and the shadow stayed in the kitchen area. One night, my nephew called me. He was home by himself, and he was really upset, and he was crying. And I asked him what was wrong, and he said the front door, or the back door, the kitchen door, kept opening and slamming, and it was doing it by itself. And I said, "What do you mean opening and slamming?" And he said that it was opening real wide, and then all of a sudden it would just slam. I
Mhm.
said, "What are you doing?" He was 14 years old at the time.
Mhm.
He said, "Well, I was just sitting here smoking a cigarette." I said, "Okay." I said,
14 smoking, that's another story, but yeah.
that's another story, but he was
Mhm.
sitting there, his mom wasn't home. He wouldn't have done it if she was there, but his mom wasn't home, so he was sitting there smoking a cigarette.
Well, maybe he
His
was in
mom,
trouble for smoking then by the spirit.
that's entirely true. His mom smoked, so I guess he figured, well, mom smokes in here, she'll never know, another cigarette. But anyway, So he called me up, and I could hear the slamming in the background. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Your mom took that bedside table home with her." I said, "Where does she have it?" He says, "Well, it's in the kitchen." I said, "Okay." I said, "First thing, put the cigarette out." Because we honestly believed, or I honestly believed, that my grandfather's energy was attached to this bedside table. And he hated cigarette smoke, which I thought was kind of strange because
Didn't you
he
have a cigarette get smacked out of your hand when you were staying
that
up at your
yeah,
house?
that was here. That's another story.
Mm-hmm.
But he hated cigarettes smoke. He hated it. And it was kind of strange because he chewed tobacco and he smoked a pipe. But he absolutely hated cigarette smoke. But he never smoked his pipe in the house, and he didn't allow cigarette smoking in the house.
So you
Anyway,
think that after he put out his cigarette, what happened?
I told him to put out a cigarette. I said, and then tell him to knock it off. To tell him the cigarette's out, knock it off, tell him, say, "I'm your grandson," because he had never met my grandfather. I mean, I barely knew him. And I told him, I said, explain to him that you're his grandson and you are not going to smoke again in the house. And that's what he did. And I told him, I said, lay the phone down. And I said, if that don't work, I'll come and get you. So that's what he did. And he said that the door flew open and just stayed open. It just stopped. He said it was like snapping your fingers. It just stopped. And he said he never smoked again in that house after that. But when his mom got home that night, he told her everything that happened. And he told her about, he called me and what I told him to say. And, everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she took this table out of her house and she set it outside in the yard and put flowers on it. And it is pretty close to the house. But she did tell me that after that she would see this big, and he was a big man. He wasn't a little man, he was a big man. And she said that she every once in a while she'd see this big shadow out in the yard. And it wasn't too long after that, when she started seeing this, that she brought the table back and put it back in the shed. And I asked her, I said, well, about a week later, I said, well, you brought that table back. I said, have you seen anything since then? And she says, nope, haven't seen a thing. And the really funny part is that none of us will go in that shed.
Right. Well, that's like you said, there's attachment. I guess to his items that he worked really hard at or whatever.
Well, he was dying,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of energy was put into the things that were in that room. That's like the old hospital bed.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody has used it
Mm-hmm.
since he passed away. I don't know the reason for that because hospital beds are something that you pass around the family when someone gets sick. But this one has never left that shed since the day it was put in there. It's still wrapped in plastic. The mattresses are still wrapped in plastic, and this is not one of those electric ones either. This is one of the old ones that you had to crank it. It
Right.
had cranks on it for the head, for the feet, to raise the bed up and down. I mean, it was a lot of work just adjusting that thing.
Well, you remember that movie and story they had about the Dibbuk box? That wine box that had a
Box.
Dibbuk. Well, it's yeah, but it was a wine box that contained a Dibbuk in it, and a Dibbuk is basically a Jewish word for a spirit that's clinging or cleaving. And
Right.
it's believed that the soul of a person sometimes remains behind, like an earthbound spirit, and upon death of the physical body. And at times the Dibbuk seeks attachment to another human being who is living in a body for, mutual purpose until the clinging spirit can move on to his or her own life journey or is helped, right?
Right.
Well, you heard about that wine box that contained in it. And this girl, her grandma told them to bury it with her, but it was against Jewish customs or whatever. So and her grandmother said, do not open this because there is an evil spirit in this, and that's capable of haunting or possessing the
Didn't
living.
it didn't it take like 2 or 3 times to even capture this spirit in this wine box?
What, I don't know that part, but I know that they sold it to an antique buyer in Portland,
Right.
and he was stating, because he opened the box to see what was inside or whatever, and after that, that's when he started having odd experiences of lights going on and off, things exploding, light bulbs exploding, items being moved, odd smells.
Well, he opened the box, didn't he?
Right. Well, then he also gave it to his mother as a gift, and she ended up having a heart attack. Well, in the hospital, she told him to take the box back. But and anybody who seemed to come in contact with that box from his family or had it for a little bit kept bringing it back, and they all kept having the same reoccurring dream, like horrible dream. People were being scratched. He was seeing shadowy people, and having health issues himself.
Right.
Now, how does a box, how did somebody trap a spirit in a box? That I can't speak for, because I think it's kind of impossible. How do you bind a free... Because if you have free will here, as far as if it's a human spirit, right? If it's a good person or bad person, then you have to turn your thing up because you're too quiet. But you cannot bind a human spirit because they have free will. You have free will here, you have free will over there. Now, if it's a demonic entity that's never been on this planet in a physical form, maybe it's possible to bind something if you have the authority over it, but who really has authority over what? I don't know if it's possible or not, as far as them trapping that in there, and maybe possible. But the Dibbuk, it goes back in, way back in the Jewish customs and stuff. Even Jesus, when he was casting out attachments and people being possessed back then. Now, when he was casting them out, what he was doing was he was actually instructing the spirits to cease from clinging to that human and its earthly life, and telling them to move on, either to the life review, or some people call it.
That's kind of a different thing though, because I mean, when Jesus cast something out, it had to go.
Well, that's some people. Well, yeah, you have to. I still can't hear you, too low. And some people say, you go to heaven, whatever. But and even back then, when Jesus was doing it, they were questioning his new way of dealing with the spirits, and and how he was casting out the unclean spirits or whatever. And it talks about it, but apparently, spirits of the deceased humans possessing another person was not new to the Jewish believers before Jesus came. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not making this into a Catholic Christian thing. We're talking about possessions, people having power. Can you trap something? Can you release something? And this is someone that people know of that had saved people from possessions and stuff like that, but to me, I believe, a ghost is somebody who does not want to leave this earth, and seeks out somebody who has similarities to what they were living their life as, and then they'll go and attach themselves to that person. You know what I mean? Whereas I think, or they'll work on them long enough to, if they get strong enough and learn how to, possibly work their way into a person. But as far as evil possession, I think that's more of something demonic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't hear you at all. You need to turn your volume up.
I don't know what happened.
Well, I don't know if everybody can hear you and on the show or whatever, but
What about now?
Sort of. But like I'm saying,
What about now?
a little bit better. But they say, like I said, both spirits and humans both have the same dual nature of good and bad behavior, and who you are here carries on to who you are in the afterlife. You don't automatically change and get better, but you're still low. I don't know. You might have to turn your Skype sound up part. You must have had some random glitch. That or Ustream producer is just acting up tonight, so we're sorry. Sometimes things get out of our control and stuff happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they do say, if even, when you're talking about Jesus, he was one of the people who freed people from possessions and stuff like that. But if you read, and I'm not getting into Christian stuff, but this is something that I can give as an example. But you remember Saul, King Saul, he had a spirit attachment, remember?
Right.
And it's because his personality, he went from being, someone who had a positive outlook and was a good person and whatever, and then he started getting jealous and the ego and doing negative stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then he may have attracted that spirit, thus getting a possession. So that's the only thing that I could see of. That's the only case that I know of people, who had the ability to cast out possession and stuff like that. But as far as trapping something in an item and binding a spirit, I have no idea if that's possible.
Well, it seems to me, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I heard your phone. Someone text you.
Okay. That's one of my sisters. I have 3 of them.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if it's an evil spirit in the Dibbuk box, that it would have to be bound, because
But
I don't think
how?
it's going to. I don't know, because I don't think it's going to stay there. I don't even think if it was any kind of a spirit, it's going to stay there. So, I don't know
Don't read that. Just keep talking.
if I'm not reading it. I don't know. I lost my train of thought, actually.
If it's possible. Yeah, I mean, the reason why,
Yeah,
when we're
that's it.
talking about
Thank you.
the...
I couldn't think of that. I don't even know if it's possible. I don't know if you can even trap an evil spirit. I mean, it seems to me that you would really, really have to have the authority to do that.
Or you believe in your... Because, and I'm not... There's so many different religions and theologies that speak about this, that we have the ability to... We have power with our words and energy.
Right.
So if you can create something, you can manifest it, be it good or bad. Maybe if you really believe in it and have the faith, you may be able to contain a non-human spirit that's never been on this plane. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe these people believed that they did it. They believed that there was something trapped in this box, and they told a story and gave it energy that creates like a poltergeist.
Well, I don't know how they would bind it. I really
either.
don't. But it seems to me that they would have to bind it to keep it in there. But apparently this man in, what'd you say, Oregon, opened the box.
Portland, yeah, that some antique dude. That's what they say.
He opened the box. So he's let it out. Even if the people who put it in there had to bind it to keep it in the box, once you open up the doors
But you
to
know
the
what?
box, you release it.
That kind of goes with a little bit of one of our other shows that we were talking about. Remember, there was the Skinwalkers and the Navajo people who had shaman and stuff, and they believed in their abilities and their faith,
Right.
that they could cast away curses and or evil spirits, and the other person had to have the same belief for it to work. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm one of those people that, a curse is only powerful if you believe in it. I don't believe in curses.
I believe that you create...
I've used the expression before when I've had a day, and it's been more than Smoosh is right. It's
Pandora's
something like
box,
Pandora's
yeah,
box.
right.
But I've had days where it seemed like nothing has gone right, and I've made the statement, I must be cursed.
But
I
you
don't
put that
really
power...
believe in that.
But see, you put that power over... You spoke that power. You gave that power over yourself. So you created that. Because, like I'm saying, if everything is energy and our thoughts are energy, and you're thinking negative, you're going to act negative, and you're going to lead yourself in a negative way. Do you see what I'm saying? Like attracts like. So does like energy attract other energy to yourself. So, if you have fears and negativity and all that stuff, that you're going to expose yourself and attract people to you. Like if you hate liars, or you hate druggies, or you hate this, or you don't want this to happen to you, and you keep thinking about it, saying this is going to happen, and 9/10 of the time it does. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
And people are like, "Woe is me!" And like, if you just change your thinking,
I do believe
world.
you can. Yeah, I do believe that you can bring negative energy to yourself by having negative thoughts or saying something negative. about yourself. I do believe that.
It's like
Yeah.
magnets, man. You attract
Yeah.
what you are, So you ever notice that sometimes you'll have a circle of friends that have similar insecurities and fears that you have, because until you work those insecurities and fears out of you, then you're going to keep having these same type of experiences or these same similar people around you. But when you work out the negative of it in your soul as you do your journey, and you're becoming a better person and more positive and
I know when I'm around
self, you're going
people
to be
like
changing.
that, I start to feel their negative energy. I just start to feel it, and pretty soon,
But you become it
I
them
start
too.
having these negative thoughts, and I have to get up and get away from these people.
Birds of a feather flock together. Eventually,
Right.
you're going to be wore down and become just like the people that you
Exactly.
associate
Because
with.
people like that, negative people, people that are always negative, always putting themselves down, wanting that sympathy, wanting somebody to listen to all of these bad things that happen to them,
But it takes
you
one.
know,
It takes
they
one word.
project
Yeah.
that to you,
But to
and
themselves.
yeah, they project that to you, and the next thing you know, you're sitting there, with these same kind of thoughts.
But
You have to get away from those
But
people.
it doesn't
You,
matter if you get away from them until you initially work out the same insecurities that you have like them. You may not
you don't
react.
have to have the same insecurities. All
No,
you have
wait,
to do is
listen.
sit there and soak up their energy.
No, I get that, but get why what I'm saying after that. Okay, there's a reason why there's certain people that you're attracting to yourself is because you have similar injuries and or fears or insecurities like they do. You may not react the same way that they do to certain things that happen to you. Like two people may act totally different to the same incident. You know what I mean? One may
Yeah.
overreact with the other one internalizes it or doesn't do the same thing. But the reason why you're attracting these type of people to you is because you may not like them, but inside you have the similar insecurities and or injuries that you need to work out in your soul. And once you work it out, you're no longer going to attract these type of people
I
or
I try my best.
experiences. Wait, or these experiences to you to happen. If you always like, why does these bad things keep happening to me? It's because there's a part of you that you need to work out in order for this life lesson not to keep repeating itself. You ever notice like some people will keep moving because they always end up having shitty neighbors? Well, you're always going to have that same shitty neighbor who's projecting the same, almost same personality that you kind of have. Because sometimes the hate that we have for somebody else is we have the same almost identical issues or personality that they have. And once you take it out and
I
work
don't
it
have
out,
nothing like they got.
I don't know, you may have some, maybe not to the same degree, but once you work that out, you stop attracting that to you. You know what I'm saying? And then you step
I
up
I try
higher.
I
That's what
try
I'm
my
trying to talk about. Energy attracts energy, therefore you
right.
attract negative spirits, the same
Oh yeah,
process.
right. I people like that bore me to tears anyway. Okay, I hate to say it because it makes me sound unsympathetic. But the thing of it is, I can't hang around people like that because I'm like a sponge. You try to lend a sympathetic ear, and once in a while, when a friend is having problems or they're feeling a little down or something, I'll listen to them. I'm talking about people that every time you're around them, it's the same issues, the same thing over and over and over and over. And after a while, you just find yourself avoiding these people because you're soaking up that energy. You're leaving yourself open. They're projecting their energy
Right.
onto you. And even though you may fight it, I mean, it's still going to seep through.
Well, right. But even if you get away from them, you're still going to attract similar people to you until you work out maybe
Right. Until
you
you
have.
get rid of that.
Well, not the same
Exactly.
maybe you're insecure about something that they have the same insecurity about or fear. And when you work that out, you're no longer going to have to learn that lesson. But you may also deal with stuff because some people believe certain things happen to you until I don't know. This can go so far, but like we say,
I know.
every energy, we attract the living and the dead. So if somebody's attracted to the same similar injuries that you have, they're going to come to you being living or dead. Or, you're also
But it
going.
makes you wonder if those people have some sort of attachment that makes them feel this way all the time. That's working on them,
But they
and
do.
and it's trying to work on you
They do.
through them.
That happens too. There's such a huge things That's like spider web with this stuff too that we're talking about. It goes
Yeah.
so out in so many different ways, but it does. There's spirits that work on people, and then they use them. You ever notice, like, you'll just get in fights with family members, and you're like, why am I even fighting with them for no reason? And you know what I always say? Stop listening to the devil, because there's always like the
Oh, I always have a reason when I fight with my family members.
but there's always the good guy on your shoulder and the bad guy, and there's always you know what it is? You'll be doing dishes, and all of a sudden you're just doing dishes. All of a sudden you think of a memory, and then it leads to another negative memory, and then it leads to another negative memory, and then all of a sudden you're just all fiery. It's like something's influencing you, trying to work up anger, and then it wants you to respond to that anger and then go
Right.
lash out at somebody else. And that could be, like you said, an attachment working at you, trying to cause havoc in your life. Now, you don't need, you may have that memory, and then you can say, you know what, I'm not going to dwell on this. I forgive this person. I'm letting this go. I'm going to move forward because I can't change the past. I only have control of today. But if people just sit there and keep focusing on this thing's going to keep beating at you and pounding in more negative and say, remember this, remember this, remember this, So, yeah, I believe attachments can do that and work at you and then use you to go attack somebody else. But that's not a
Right.
possession. That's an attachment. But as far as dolls and this, that, whatever, I do not believe they can be possessed. I don't think something is
I don't
living in
either.
them, moving and what. I think something might pick it up and move it. I think maybe the person themselves with their own fear could create something to do that as well, There's so many possibilities. We're not saying everything we're saying is factual. We're just sharing thoughts and ideas that we're having at this time. 2 hours from now, we could totally have a different thought on this.
Right.
Nobody's an expert by any means, but it's cool for all of us to gather in a place and just share this stuff, and we welcome people to call in sometimes or email us and share us their ideas on stuff, as well.
Exactly. I agree. I don't think inanimate objects can be possessed. I do think, though, that there can be energy attached to them.
Correct.
And it's, it could be different kind of energy. You could have a spirit attached to something that's perfectly benign. You could
Right.
have a demonic spirit attached to them. I think that it may be, the situation or the things, the energy that this thing has been around. I just don't believe. I don't believe that these things can be possessed. I know I have heard that dolls can be vessels that people cast spirits into. I don't believe that.
But then again, how do you have control over something that has free will unless it's an entity that's never ever been on
Right.
this earth? But
Now,
how
I
then
do
do you
believe
have
that
that
people.
power?
I do believe that people can have attachments. I also believe that people can be possessed.
Right.
But people are not inanimate objects.
Do you think animals could be possessed? That's interesting.
That would be an interesting
One to research
subject.
and look up to see if people ever had a pet that automatically turned.
I have heard stories of pets that were just as gentle as they could be, and all of a sudden turn on their masters for no reason. I don't know. That would be another one that if you're going to get to someone, it's like I said before. If a demonic spirit or a negative spirit is going to affect a child, the best way to do it, in my opinion, one of the best ways, maybe not the best way,
But
is to
if-
attach itself
Yeah.
to its toys. If a spirit, a negative spirit or demonic spirit wants to get to an entire family, why not attach itself to the pet? I mean, this is something that interacts with every member of that
would
family.
go with the David Berkowitz thing where the neighbor's dog was telling him to, do evil stuff. But here's
I
another
don't
thing.
think a dog can be possessed.
But here's another thing I
Uh.
had that popped in my head that maybe, what do you think about children parents taking their kids and stuff doing investigations, these little kids who were like, 12 and under? I mean, what do you think about that? Where they're allowing their children to participate in using ghost boxes and doing EVPs and stuff. I mean,
My personal
don't you think they're a
opinion
little
on
bit more
that-
open for? Because people will say, well, they have adult supervision, but how can you protect a
No,
child
no.
from something
My
you can't
personal
see?
opinion. My personal opinion on that is that the parents that allow that are absolutely ignorant and don't know what they're doing. That now I know I'll probably get hate emails on this, but that's my personal opinion. They have no idea what is, even though their child may be gifted, the child is still way too young. Its gifts that child's gifts are not developed. That child has no idea how to protect itself, and I think that the parents that allow that are
No,
just
isn't it
absolutely
like the same
ignorant
as
and
throwing
have
them in?
absolutely no idea what they're doing.
Wouldn't it be the same thing as throwing your kids in a crack house
You might as well.
and give them drugs and say, here, go at it? But the thing is, what I'm saying is, the people who are doing it in the first place don't really know what they're doing anyway, because none of us are experts, okay? Nobody. Even if you print out a piece of paper that says, I'm a demonologist, pay me $1 million.
Big deal.
You're not, nobody, me, you, and everybody on this planet are not an expert when it comes to the spiritual realm, okay? We may get tips, clues, and as far as saying somebody being gifted, everybody's gifted. You know why? Because we're all spirits having a human experience. We're not humans having a spiritual experiences. The people who may be more in tune is because they might be more aware of who they are, and they're not clouded by materialistic and animalistic actions that we do on this planet. They're living more on their spiritual side and less on the human side. You know what I'm saying? And ego and
Right.
selfishness also block your connection with your spiritual side. You know what I mean? But little kids are still closer to God still. They haven't been brainwashed to believe untruths that the world does. You know what I mean? And I believe that when they're playing with this stuff, I think they're more easier
Children
being
think
possessed.
more of it being a game
Yeah.
than anything else.
But a
You
little
know, and
kid's
it's
more
not.
open to be
It
possessed.
is not a game.
Right. But how's
It's
adult?
just not a game. Why would an adult involve a young child like that anyway?
I don't know.
You know, I mean, you're just opening up a door of danger to that child.
You can't protect that, because what are you going to do? Take a bat to something you can't even see? You know, and it's hard enough for us as adults to protect ourselves. How are you going to protect a child? And a child's more open, you know, and
Right.
they'll invite
A
something
child's
in.
mind is open to everything.
Right.
You know, I mean,
they're
they don't
sponge.
know enough to be afraid of these things. It's okay to do paranormal investigations, but you have to. But a little fear doesn't help, because when you have fear in you of the unknown, that you're going into this place to investigate, it helps you to be more alert and to be more apt to protect yourself. Children don't do that. It's a game to children. They don't know these things.
Well, you don't want to
They,
be,
you know,
but you
and
don't want to create fear in people either, because when you create fear, you're allowing them to call out attachments by fear. There's dark entities that enjoy that, and religions and churches thrive off of that.
I'm not saying be so scared you pee your pants,
Well, no, but don't.
but
But,
you
but they
still have
shouldn't
to
be
be
in it.
but you still have to be wary
Yeah.
of what you're walking into. You have to be prepared for what you're walking into, because you don't know what you're going to run into. You may run into an intelligent haunting, a residual haunting, a demonic haunting.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't hurt to have. I'm not saying be scared to death, but it doesn't hurt to have just a little bit of fear in there to make you protect yourself.
Right.
Well, we
Yeah.
are out of time.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around, even though we
I
had
will-
sound issues.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and join us next week when we'll be discussing strange unsolved disappearances, the Ninth Legion, the lost colony of Roanoke Island, the missing lighthouse keepers, and Larry the missing boy of New Mexico. And I hope everyone has a great week.
Right.
Thank you for coming.
And,
And I want to say a belated happy birthday to Penny, our
and
mod.
Night Owl. It was her birthday too.
Night
They had
Owl.
the same Night Owl. They had the same birthday on Sunday. And thank you to our mods for helping out, and thank you for everybody coming, and share us on Facebook, and have a great night.